All right, this is going to be a good video. This is going to be a good one. So I have about 5 talking points that we're going to go through. Big shout out to everybody who is going to be in the comments like, oh man, you really milking this, man. Yes, I'm milking it. You idiot. 7 years the game comes out. I can't watch anything without seeing an ad on it. People can play through the entire 30 hours of the game. And y'all mad at me because I done did 5, 6 videos. I done told y'all, man, if I want to do 40 of them bad boys, that's exactly what I'm going to do on my content creator. You shouldn't be surprised. Look at my, what you call them bad boys, the banners, man, on my page. What does it say? Gaming. Shut the hell up. Anyway, I actually thought I was going to be done. But I saw some reoccurring themes that we have to talk about and discuss, because really what's happened is that folks have tried to overcomplicate the narrative of Last of Us 2, even dealing with some of the personality traits of the characters, to justify 2 of the big talking points, the ending as well as what happened to Joel. And if you're watching this, I'd assume that you've already played this game or know what was going on. So if you're spoiled, that's your own fault. Anyway, they try to overcomplicate it to make themselves seem smart. And you, as the viewer who has watched all the gameplay or played it yourself, remember, it's a story-driven game. It's very linear. You don't need to play it to understand what happens. You can just watch someone else play it. Having one of these bad boys in your hands is not going to change anything regarding what happens in this story. But they overcomplicate it, making it seem as if you're looking at it from too narrow of a lens, right? That's why you can't understand why it makes sense. But it doesn't make sense. And I have about 5 or so talking points that I'm going to address in this video that you've probably heard when people try to combat what you say if you talk about that ending as well as Joel's death in a negative context, saying that it doesn't make sense, it's inconsistent, and so forth. I've seen these. Some of you've probably seen these. These are not the only ones, and I'm probably even going to mention some more as I'm thinking about it as I'm recording this video. This is a one-take Jake. Probably shouldn't have did this one-take Jake, but here we are. So one of the talking points, start with Joel's death. One of the main talking points when it comes to this is that for example, my main criticism of that is that it's out of character, not just for Joel, by the way, but for Tommy as well, who did a lot of talking. For those that don't know, they have saved essentially Abby a couple of times before the scene where Joel is beat to death with a golf club. Also remember that a flashback kind of happens throughout all of this and triggers all of this. I think that's important towards the end. And I'll mention that in a minute. But I say that it's inconsistent with the character because when you understand how untrustworthy he was, Joel, I mean, when you talk about running people over and avoiding helping people that have been in pain throughout the first game, remember that one scene where he's driving and he's like, Ellie's like, yeah, well, what about this guy? And the dude is like, he's like, oh man, he's just maybe faking being injured. I ain't got time for that, basically, is what he says. That's his character. That's who he is. And remember, he's a survivor, man. This is what he's done for the better half of his life. That can even more so be said, because he's younger, for Tommy, who was raised by Joel. Okay? This is all coming from the Last of Us, the first Last of Us. So when you consider the context, and the reason why people are saying that they let their guard down is because they had been chilling for five or so years. And I'm like, what does that got to do with anything? These guys have been survivors their entire life, and you mean to say, oh, they just up and got comfortable? Especially when you consider that Tommy, even more so, is running this settlement. But nonetheless, you think and this is probably the most important part of this. They went on a mission. It wasn't like they just ran and they happened to be just going on a whole stroll when they ran into Abby. No. They specifically went to check the scene. So you think even if we conceded, even if we conceded, let's just say for the sake of argument we do, even if we conceded that they had been comfortable, the switch would have went back, considering they've been in survivors their whole lives, a lot of years, let's say that. Considering this, a switch would have went off in their heads to get back into battle mode. Both of them. And this is something that Joel would have not allowed to happen. Most importantly, like you go through the rundown, like, hey man, this is how we're approaching this, right? But that's not what happened. What happened was Tommy running off at the mouth. Joel, hey, look at me, I'm Joel. This is my social security number. Here's my license plate, driver's ID, security code for my email. Tommy, we also live over there. What? You just met these guys, man. And again, not to mention the whole idea of saving Abby. I understand there was a lot of going on. But come on, man. Being chased by, I understand that. But that does not justify definitely getting yourself cornered without weapons. Come on, man. Come on, dog. Come on, man. That's unlike these characters, specifically in Joel. He wouldn't have allowed that to happen. But he did. And that goes to show, considering how early on it also happened in the game, it goes to show how him being killed was just plot convenience. It wasn't even anything they really tried to even think through. They had to shoehorn this character in, and the way that they did that was to pick some random person in the first game, a doctor. Pick some random person in the game, the first game, and say, well, that's the connection. And through a blizzard and the grace of God, Joel just falls right in Abby's lap, right in his lap. The killer of your father just falls right in your lap through a blizzard. Makes all the sense in the world. It's not plot convenience at all. Of course it is. It's lazy. It's lazy. His death was just that, just for the sake of doing it. The coincidental link up, all of that was just lazy. And when you consider that the audience that played the first game does not have a connection to Abby, they have a connection to Joel. They wanted to get rid of Joel. They got rid of it early, and the only reason that happens is so they could introduce Abby. That's the only reason that it happens. Which is a bizarre turn, but it's not anything uber intellectual or anything. But another thing that they mention in that regards is what happened with, if you remember Henry and Sam, the younger and older brothers in the first Last of Us. I've seen some people mention that, say he trusted Henry and Sam. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. That is functionally false. That is not what happened in the first game. No, he did not. What happened, and let's be correct, what happened was they actually got in a fight when they first linked up, right? Because one of them thinking they're the hunter, a hunter, and they got no link. And they started beefing immediately, right? That was the first interaction. I can't remember if it was Henry or Sam, but one of them brings up the fact that they should help each other. Joel actually is like, nah. Nope. The person that convinces him to make it happen is Ellie. That's an Ellie trait in that. And she's young, not seasoned. So Joel's first instinct was like, nah. So to bring it up the Henry and Sam thing is self-detonating. Because we know that was an Ellie thing. Ellie was not present here. So stop bringing that up. Let's get that. So get that out the way. That's done. Joel's death was stupid in the terms of how it happened. Just didn't make any sense. And I know there's going to be videos because this is why it reminds me so much of Captain Marvel. It's such a protected game. Everybody that dislikes it is an incel, hates women, hates LGBT members. And they're just not simply smart enough to understand the layers and the depth as far as what is going on. Therefore, because you don't understand it, it's not for you to understand. Like, no, it's stupid. And I just explained a little bit of why. And there's more in detail, but if I went all day long, this would be an hour-long video. And if you guys keep playing around with me, I may have to end up doing one of those. And then I really have the people that keep coming and clicking on my face talking about some, man, you really milking it, get over it. I make videos every day. That's what I do. But let's move on to the end, which I think you can make the argument that more people had an issue with that than they did the Joel thing. I think with the Joel thing, it's like, okay, let's assume that he dies. I think a lot of things that piss people off is not just the fact that he died, but the context of how he died. That was my frustration as well. It's like if you were going to kill him, there was clearly other avenues that you could have went. But the fact that, hey, you killed him, then you got to play with Abby and all of this, it's like, what? You have to play with Abby. Like, why would I want to do that? This game should have been centered around Joel and Tommy, period. Not Joel and Tommy, maybe Tommy and Ellie, if you were going to kill off Joel. But you could have gave him a more respectable death, a more logical one. But the end, which I say makes no sense because she does not ultimately kill Abby. She's a weakened Abby. She's been hung up, strung up, starving. But she did not kill Abby. Makes no sense. And I've done a video talking about that. But one of the criticisms of my criticism is that, well, she has this flashback and they say that it was the cycle of violence, right? This is a revenge thing. And she realized that this revenge is what got them in this mess and all. That's stupid. If anything, what you've done is leave the door wide open for revenge to come back to you. Why? Abby's still alive. Lev is still alive. Who's to stop either of them from getting seasoned and coming back to kill Tommy, who is in an injured state? Or more importantly, Ellie. Who's to stop that from happening? Nothing. Nobody. If you killed them, if you killed them both, I don't know why we acting like Lev is just completely innocent here. Actually, she's probably more responsible for the eye thing. My man's took an arrow to the knee, man. Anyway, none of them are innocent. Nobody in this is innocent. Everybody loses people. But yeah. If she'd have offed them both, or she didn't have to off them, she could have just left them both strung up. They both would have died. She had to do nothing. But she doesn't do that. In fact, effectively, she frees both of them. Frees one, the other frees the other, and then they sail off on the boat because she didn't get the job done. So she saved them. But this whole cycle of revenge thing, or violence, and this is the whole, she's just realizing she's understanding now because she has a flashback of Joel. And now she's so understanding here that she doesn't do it. She doesn't actually get the job done because she had a flashback. And she understands now that revenge is just not the answer after she gets her fingers bit off in the middle of a fight. Now, again, my whole claim was that when you understand all that she's went through, the fact that she is tussling with the person that beat basically her standing father figure with a right in front of her, tortured, beat with a golf club right in front of her. Not just, that's what she sees when she has the opportunity to drown her. Again, you add to the fact she got her fingers bit off. So if you weren't in a rage then, that for sure is going to send you in a rage. And then you think about the man. You have a flashback, right? And Abby has a flashback, gets the job done, gets her revenge, kills Joel. You have a flashback. The one person that popped all of this off, right? You have a flashback, and you come out, just go. Huh? Doesn't make sense. Killed everybody up at this point, killed a lot of friends of hers. Abby. Tommy did. Him shooting, what's his name, was in the face was probably the most glorious part of that, most satisfying part of the game. Anyway, doesn't make sense. She would come to that conclusion. Abby got her revenge. She walks away with Liv. And I know a lot of people have been saying like, oh, well, that's kind of the whole, it reminds her of Joel and her. It's like Joel and Ellie. It's like, huh? I bet you Joel would have got the job done. We already saw Joel do that with her father. We already saw that happen. Joel, and he said he would have did it again. If he had a chance to do it, he would have did it again. So I don't understand that because it doesn't make sense. And you can try to overthink it to make it make sense. Try to make these guys seem way more creative than what they were, but that's not what's going on. Again, if you're talking about ending the cycle of revenge, there is no indication that that's exactly what you did. These guys were weakened. Lev and her Abby were weakened. Okay? She lost the fight, Abby. She wasn't in her like buffed up big mama pump. Holla if you man. She was not in that form. What's to stop her? And who's to say that she's like, this chick done killed my homies. I'm about to get back on my protein shakes, my creatine, about to get back to doing push-ups. And I'm going to get buffed up again and I'm coming to see her. Olev's like, I'm pissed. I'm coming to see her. Who said you ended the cycle of revenge? Nothing. If you would have actually offed him, that would have more so ended it. But she didn't do it. So that doesn't even make sense. Also, another thing, which is diametrically opposed to when it comes to the flashback, some people say the flashback reminds her of Joel and Abby, or excuse me, Joel and Ellie. Ellie, it reminds them of that relationship. But another talking point, which lets you know that there are people that are trying to defend this out on opposite ends. But another one is that they say that the ending flashback is where she forgave Joel for basically messing, because this whole vaccine, which is provable, definitely when you consider that there was no solid proof that she could have been, if she was killed, that would have ultimately led to a, I don't know, cure. Anyway, nonetheless, just kind of veering off there. Some people were saying that it's a scene where she forgives him. What that got to do with Joel? Because Joel saved you. But this also is the woman that killed Joel. Okay? So what the flashback in that case be like, this man put his neck on the line for me. He did all of this for me. For me. Why wouldn't she off Abby? Like immediately. This is why my argument is that flashback should have been her seeing red. Not her, Joel, playing the guitar that she's no longer going to be able to play because she has no fingers. The ending is not that well thought out It seems like a lot of the plot points, a lot of people write like this. I don't necessarily write like this, but a lot of people write stories like with, they know main points and they try to build a story around it. And some actual storytellers will actually advise that you do that. I personally wouldn't. But it seems like they had these plot points, and how they got there, it didn't have to make sense. They just wanted these things to happen. It was like a checkbox. Joel has to die. We have to introduce this character. We have to place her in this narrative, and we have to make the user try to, and they try to make you as sympathetic to Abby as possible. They wanted you to like her. And wouldn't be surprised if they create a DLC or going into Last of Us 3 that is centered around her. But you hate her. You have every right to hate her because of what she does to Joel. But this whole idea that, okay, where she's seeing that they both lost so much and that was it. No. Joel, like, when it comes to coming out on top, Abby came out on top for a number of different reasons. Yes, she lost friends. Yes, she lost her father. She got revenge for her father. Ellie didn't get revenge for anything because for her, basically, father figure. And Joel, she didn't get revenge. Abby's walking away. Abby gets to not only get freed because she was dead to rights. She was stuck. If she doesn't come, she's more than likely out of there. If she doesn't, if Ellie doesn't come save her, she's more than likely out of there. Both of them, Lev and her. But effectively, she saves both of them. So not only did it's not even just about that she didn't kill them. She saved them effectively. She saves the person that kills Joel. Come on, man. We don't have to make excuses for this. It was a bad ending. The death of Joel didn't make sense, but it was a bad ending. And we should be able to admit that. It's fine. It's not much to it. The ending sucked. It didn't make sense, more so. And some of the talking points that you guys are using are very bad. And it does really show that a lot of people, NPC, because I've seen a lot of these talking points that I went over, and usually the people that are defending it are saying the same thing. And they're especially bad points, specifically that Henry had said. I'm like, that is a terrible point. That actually proves to the contrary if you actually played the game. Now look, my argument never was against which I played a little bit of it, and the gameplay isn't what it is. It's just nothing that we haven't already seen. Graphics, it looks like a great game, but because it's a linear, story-driven it's a movie. It's an interactive movie is what this game is, an interactive movie. Now, I'm not saying there's necessarily something wrong with that. I'm saying that if that's your approach, then we have to understand that the story basically makes the game. And if the story sucks, no matter how good it looks, it doesn't change anything. Because the story is the main part. So my advice, if you want to defend it, defend it. I think you're silly for doing it. But I think you should make better arguments.